And we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the live stream. As always, my little last minute live stream where I say, oh, this is preparation for more regular live streams, and then I don't do another one for 6 to 12 months. I hope I sound okay. I know there's always technical difficulties. My mouth is probably not synced up to the audio, but today we're mostly going to be staring at the desktop, so that shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, I'm excited. I don't get to do these live streams too often, or I guess I choose not to, but I also feel like I should because it's a fun opportunity to show an entire design process unfiltered. Hopefully, from start to finish. We'll see if I can finish off my design today, at least the first prototype. And it's also cool because I get to interact in real time with my fans and friends. Thanks for joining on this Saturday. I think it's probably Saturday for nearly everyone. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Of course, this is my first stream from Sweden, so I've had to try to accommodate my audience. Still mostly in the US, so a nice little lunchtime stream or so. Sorry, there's still probably quite the echo in the room. I'm working on the acoustics. Cool. We got some people coming in from Scotland, Texas, Colombia, Arkansas. Nice diversity, huh? It's really one of the coolest things about YouTube is just the global nature of it. Excuse the bare white room. This is not actually the room I'm sitting in. I just wanted to create a virtual background. If I turn it off for a second, you can see where I'm really sitting right now. So here I am in Sweden. But that's not interesting, so I just create this white room to eliminate any distractions. In fact, I'm going to be popping into the corner of the camera like this most of the time. Through magic powers, I'm disappearing even more. So, well, let's jump back here for a second while I introduce our project for the day. What's up, Mexico, Italy, Florida, Trinidad, Illinois? Did I already say that? Now this is my air filter in the background. One of my biggest enemies is allergies. Second only to mosquitoes. The mosquitoes are killing me here. I live about a kilometer, 0.6 miles or so away from the Baltic Sea and some sources of fresh water as well. So lots of mosquitoes here. It's definitely high on my priority list to come up with some ways to eliminate those buggers, but today's project is not about mosquitoes. It's only sort of related. The reason I had to throw this stream together and decided to do a live stream just a few hours ago today, thankfully it seems like it's working, but the reason is because yesterday I was going on one of my peaceful jogs through the Swedish forest and Oceanside. I've never been much of a runner, but it's quickly become one of my favorite hobbies and exercises out here because I always stumble into something beautiful and something new. I always end up out twice as long as I plan. Luckily, the sun doesn't actually set. It gets kind of dark, but the moon was massive yesterday. So yeah, even in the middle of the night, it was nice and bright. Had a great run, but yes, the reason I'm making this live stream is because yesterday I stumbled into the most beautiful, endless field of wild blueberries. And I love me some blueberries. I'd say berries in general are probably my favorite category of fruits, and blueberries might be up on top of the list. Maybe. I'm not sure. I like a good assortment of berries. But anyways, there's so many wild blueberries out here, and sure I can go around picking them by hand, but uh, with the size of that field, I figured I've got to make myself a tool to make life a bit easier and hopefully get just mountains of blueberries that I can freeze and save for the next several months or so, or realistically a few weeks. I eat a lot of blueberries. They go in my morning cereal most days. So, anyways, come on, free fruit out in the wild. Got to take advantage of that. So today we're making a blueberry picker, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to show off the power of dovetail joints in 3D printing design. Um, Dovetails are generally pretty good joints to make for 3D printing if you do things right. Hopefully, I'll show you some good practices. And one of the reasons they're so powerful for 3D printing is it allows you to connect parts that were printed in different orientations. So, especially with functional prints like a blueberry picker, you'll want certain components of the entire thing to be printed in a certain direction on the 3D printer. Those of you who have printers know the deal. Layer lines are usually the most prone to breaking, so if you need a part to be strong, you want as much surface area between layers as possible. And thanks to dovetail joints, we're going to make a nice and strong blueberry picker. At least that's my goal for the day. So I didn't do too much planning ahead of this stream, because it was so last minute, but also because I'm hoping to share some of the quick design process with y'all. But I did look into some existing options. So let me see if I can pull those up for you. Nothing wrong with some quick and dirty research on Google Images. We see who's winning the SEO battle here, whoever makes this red blueberry picker. You know, the cheap modern solutions, but look at this bad boy. Oh, it's a small picture, but yeah. I have been debating if I want to make a massive one or a smaller, more manageable one. I'll probably go for something in between. I really like this model, super simple. Nice flat surfaces, which will be good for 3D printing and dovetail joints. And I don't think I have to do anything crazy. There are a few options that we'll discuss, but that's the general idea. I'm really inspired by these old wooden ones. Simple, easy, just a comb that can grab berries while the branches slide through, and an area to contain a certain amount of berries before you dump those into a bucket or a bag. You know, I was debating whether I want some kind of special funnel so that I can scoop and directly funnel into a bag, things like that, but blueberry season is short, and I'm hoping to get this working on my first try. So I'm not going to do anything crazy today. This first prototype, I just want to get a basic blueberry picker that works. And thanks again to the method of construction we'll be using here, dovetail joints, to make a bunch of separate pieces come together. That means it's easier to prototype. We don't have to reprint the entire model if we want a new handle or a different amount of spacing between the combs. We can just print that one part. So that'll be good, but if my powers of guesstimation pay off, we won't even have to print it more than once. I do have my what's it called, dustpan here, which didn't involve dovetail. Oh, it does have a big wide dovetail here, slightly unconventional one, which was kind of for the same reason, being able to swap out the brushes and the handles, because realistically these bristles will break at some point while the handle will still be good. So might as well split that into multiple parts so we don't have to go reprinting the whole thing. Albin, American blueberries versus Swedish blueberries. Uh, I would say the Swedish ones are better, but it's a bit of an unfair comparison because I haven't picked wild blueberries in the US. And most wild berries just tend to be sweeter and tastier, albeit a little smaller. Yeah, I definitely like the berries here. Yes, I know I can borrow a blueberry picker from my sister. I know I can buy one of these on Amazon for about 18 US dollars, but it's hard to turn down a fun little CAD challenge. So I'm going for it. Let's take a quick look at some of the sketches I did. Like I said, I didn't do too much pre-planning, but some quick sketches. Ignore my balance boards here. You already saw that in the last video, but I don't know. Maybe these sketches are a bit wild and only useful for me, but I was just starting to plan in my head. Whoa, Zoom's going crazy there. I just wanted to figure out how this would come together. Uh, since there's all these different parts coming together, I kind of planned it step by step what the assembly would look like, imagining how all these different parts would slide together, where the forces are going to be the strongest, and whether I can actually make this work and be a good part. So, I don't know. Yeah, that probably doesn't mean much to you, those images, but that's what I'm working with. And while it may not be the best practice, just to challenge myself, and I don't know. I don't always follow the best practices. It probably would be a good idea to sketch out a little bit more and really understand exactly all the parts that I'm working with, but I'm just going to jump straight into Autodesk Fusion here. As I mentioned in the description, this stream is sponsored by Autodesk Fusion in the sense that they provide me with the full commercial license so that I can share videos like this. They're not paying me, but I'm not paying for Fusion. That said, I do think it's a fantastic software. Pretty much my favorite CAD software I've worked with. And as far as I'm aware, the non-commercial personal use license is still available for free. So for those of you who want to try it out and just get a taste of it, yeah, you can try it for free. There's also affordable startup licenses. And furthermore, everything I show you in this video, in this program, can more or less be applied to other CAD software. You know, they all have their own quirks and stuff, but I'll try to be general with my teachings here. So we're going to start by deleting the default cube. That's not really a default, that's a Blender joke. No, here in Fusion we start with a blank canvas. And let's see, let me refer to my sketch here. I think what I'm going to do is start by kind of modeling out the entire, or at least like the main body as a single part, even though I will be splitting it up. But just to get a sense of scale and everything, I'll do it as one part first, and then I can redo it as all the separate parts that will be dovetailed together. So, first things first, this is going to be the front of the scooper. This slanted surface is going to have that comb. I definitely want that comb to be printed flat, so that's going to be one part on its own. If I printed the comb like this, there would be a lot of thin areas that could snap easily at the layer lines. If I print it flat, it'll be one big, long, flat layers. I'm also going to make this piece here slightly angled. I'm not doing a perfect 90 degree because I feel like if I give it that little angle when I'm scooping, the blueberries are less likely to fall out from the back. And my thinking is I'll just scoop, and when I want to dump it into a bag, I'll just dump it out of the front again. So, let's see. Like I said, I'm using this as reference, kind of just to get an idea of the size of things. I've got my digital calipers here, the best tool. If you can only have one design tool, digital calipers are the way to go. I think this is about 200 millimeters wide, and that's quite wide. That'll give me all the blueberries I need. So I'll do like a 200 by 200, which will fit on a lot of 3D printers. Oh no, don't crash. I'm going to hide the screen really quickly while I start saving my file, because I try not to spoil other things I'm working on during these live streams, even though it always happens. But I'm going to go ahead and save early, which is something I always forget to do, especially on live streams. But that's why the software kind of jumping early on gives me that, like, whoa, don't forget. Okay. Anyways, so I'm going to use D to pull up the dimension tool. It's pretty basic that you want to dimension everything in your design, or at least you want to turn all these blue lines into black lines, which signify that they are locked into place. So these lines are blue because I can still move everything around. I haven't given enough dimensions to my design yet. So yeah, this side panel, I'm going to say it's 200 millimeters wide. Although in my design, I'm also going to have the handle behind the bucket. Do I want to consider that yet? No. I'm going to make this a nice and big scooper, so that's okay. We're going to make this 200 millimeters long. And then for height, I'm just going to kind of visualize with my calipers. 60 millimeters is going to be my go-to starting off here. Again, I'm kind of just starting off rough here. This is bound to change a little bit here and there. Like, yeah, I'm already thinking 60 might be a bit much for the 200, because I want this to be a nice, good slant for ergonomic scooping. If you select two lines, you can dimension an angle. 40 degrees seems good to me. Let's see what this looks like at 50 millimeters tall. Is that gonna be enough? Yeah, I think so. What is my go-to machine for a quick and dirty prototype? If you're talking about 3D printers, I mean, right now I only have two printers on hand that I'm actively using. The Bamboo X1 Carbon and the Cheedy Q1 Pro. And they're both super reliable and fast and accurate, so I don't really have a preference between the two, except for the parts I'm printing in ABS or ASA, I will probably use the Q1 Pro just because it has the heated chamber and it's a little less likely to warp. So let's make that 65, and look at that. Now all our lines are black and locked in. These 4 measurements and the fact that I started on the origin of the sketch here, which is basically the 0, 0. All those things combined mean that this is a locked-in dimension. Now we can extrude this, and I'm going to extrude symmetrically for a total distance of 200 millimeters as well. I mean, I kind of feel like it should be a little longer than it is wide. So the question is, do I start off with a slightly smaller scoop? Yeah, I'll probably go a bit smaller. Honestly, when you guys see how many blueberries there are out here, you'll understand that I don't need to make this a massive scoop. I'll be getting plenty. Plus, quicker printing. I want to have this done in a day or two, you know? Hello Simon, jag mår bra. Jag mår bra. Jag måste öva fortfarande min svenska. ganska dåligt. Men jag lär mig little by little. All right, so this looks like a good general box size here. It is warm in here. I'm going to open the window a bit. Hopefully not get those dreaded mosquitoes in here. Yeah, hey Vivelaine, I agree. Better being smaller and more workable than some giant cumbersome blueberry picker. So this will be like about yay big, which I think is pretty perfect. All right. Maybe I need a sketch for you guys to let you understand exactly what I'm going for right now. So the first thing I'm going to do, the design, like I said, I planned it out a little bit, and that's good because it's going to be kind of weird. First, I'm going to have this arcing thing, which is a support for the handle. It's going to be perpendicular to the handle. And then the sides are going to slide into that with dovetail joints from the bottom. That way they can't pull off. Basically, this blueberry picker is going to be taking most of its force in the direction that I'm scooping. So I considered that. But yeah, basically we're going to have this like handle thing that's holding on to the actual handle that I'm gripping. Sorry, my live stream sketches especially are always terrible. But these sides of the scooper and that handle support are going to be the first two things that connect. So let me block out the handle too in Fusion. Oh, sorry. I'll give you a quick big look at what I'm doing. Okay. Have I tried it? Hjortron. Hjortron. I don't know what that is. What is Hjortron? Why did I move from the US? Well, I have a whole vlog channel about that. Not the most active channel, but I do talk more about my motivations and whatnot on Skapa Alt. But I've visited Sweden several times and it's beautiful. I lived in California my whole life, so as nice of a place as it is, it all became a little too normal for me. I've always wanted to live an exciting life and see more than just one place in the world. I think it's a great way to become more cultured. So yeah, I thought living abroad would always be cool. And my sister has lived here for 12, maybe 13 years now. So that's invaluable to have someone nearby who's already gone through everything. And I was able to buy a beautiful house out here. All right, so this is where the handle is going to be. And how much do I really want to block out here? I just want to make sure that the handle will have enough space for my hand. So it's going to be something like this. I'll make these all parallel. So this is going to be very similar to my dustpan where it's a plug and socket that snaps together, which means I want probably a 3mm wall plus 0.2 millimeter of clearance. So let's just say 3.2, 3.2, and 3.2. That bottom could be a little more thin, but I think that's okay. So do. Now I can quickly just kind of like roughly measure my hand. I'm lucky that my hands are pretty big. I feel like if I ergonomically make something work for my hands, it'll work for most people. So I only go slightly bigger than what I need. So here it's going to be 110 millimeters is how wide I need the grip part to be. So we're going to have this thing. We're going to have the handle that comes down pretty much straight down like that, which means from here to here, I want it to be 110. Oh, and we're running into some problems already with my design. The question is, do I make it all longer? Kind of seems like the way to go. Let's see what I have to make this. Or let's actually undimension this. I'm going to delete that and instead lock these like that. This part, how thick does that need to be? Let's see. That's going to be, it doesn't have to be much. Let's say 12 millimeters. I like the pressure of designing on a live stream, that it forces me to make decisions quickly, but I'm also hoping that I don't make dumb decisions because I'm trying to be quick. Let's say 25. I can probably go 22 for the handle. Or actually, let's see, what's this? Well, yeah, this part's not a handle. This is 18, 22. Yeah. So my hand will be able to fit under there. Let's make sure there's clearance for my fingers. Oh, so apparently I have had Hjortun jam. Just trying. My live chat is off on the side. In the future, I'll have my prompter showing the live stream so that I can kind of see everything more at once, but I want to pay attention to the chat, but I'm always more focused on my design. All right, 30 millimeters should provide plenty of clearance here. Boom, and we're fully dimensioned again. So let's exit out. Let's go back into this drop-down menu and turn that sketch back on. So generally, whenever you use a sketch for something like an extrusion, by default, Fusion will hide it afterwards. So you can just re-enable it there. So this will probably be like 25 by 25. Again, these are probably not the actual parts, but just me figuring things out. This would be 22 or so. No, what was it? 18 point, oof. Let's say 18 for now. Like so. And the reason I'm not just having a handle go straight down here is simply to leave the blueberry picking portion of the basket completely open. So that's why I liked the design where the supports kind of go off to either side of the bucket here. All right, I'm feeling pretty good. Let's go ahead and start designing some real parts. Another thing I like to do is color every separate part. So I've opened the appearance panel here using the shortcut key A. And I can give my model some bright, obnoxious colors so they're easy to tell apart. And while I may be redesigning these parts, I can use them as reference. So for example, here I can sketch against there. So this support, again, most of the force is going to be coming from when I'm pulling the blueberry picker up through the bush, which means I want the support band to kind of run over the top of this handle, if that makes sense. I'm also debating whether I want the dovetail joints to be inside or outside. I'm going to stick with my constraint of leaving the inside of the basket completely free of obstacles. So I'm going to have everything connecting to the outside here. Like so. Oh. This is going to be a symmetrical design, so I can draw a construction line straight up from the origin. I'll select it and hit X to make it a construction line, and that means I can do fun things like select this one, and then select this construction line and apply a symmetry constraint. No? Why can't I do that? Strange. Let's see. Seems like I should be able to. 1, 2, 3. Symmetry. Over constrained. It happens. What if I delete that? Okay. Sometimes you have to delete some constraints to be able to use other constraints. So there we have symmetry. Another option is just to literally only model half of this whole design, since it's all going to be mirrored. At some point in the process, maybe I will cut it in half and mirror things if it proves to be easier. But for now, I'm just going to design the whole thing. This is going to be curved, but I like to do fillets on the solid model rather than in the sketch. In some ways it's easier, and in some ways it's trickier, but I don't know. There are literally always dozens of ways to do the exact same thing in Fusion and in CAD design. That's how it goes. I'm wondering if a rounded top would be better for making sure there's more space for the berries to go into the picker. A rounded top to make sure. I'm not sure I understand what part you're talking about, rounded. This part's going to be rounded just to make it stronger and save material. Generally, a fillet is stronger than a sharp 90-degree angle like this. I'm going to go 3 millimeters is kind of a default thickness, although probably shouldn't be. It's good practice to use multiples of the width of the line that you're 3D printing with. So the standard is a 0.4 millimeter line. So going by that rule, this should either be 2.4 millimeters or 3.2. But here I am breaking my own rules. 3 millimeters does generally work well. It means there's going to be like an odd number of lines. I don't know. Am I rambling? All right. By hitting P, I can project these lines from previous things I've sketched and reference those with my constraints here. So I'm going to make this collinear. Here I'm going to have a little 0.2 millimeter gap. So when I have dovetail joints and things that are sliding together, the clearances kind of depend on the kind of connection you're making. If I want joints that stick together and are totally permanent, I'll go as low as a 0.12 millimeter clearance. 0.15 is usually a really nice tight friction fit. 0.2 might work as a friction fit, but it might be a little loose. Let's go 0.18. You would think I have it dialed after years of doing this, but I still kind of jump between values. And honestly, there is no magic number because it depends on the entire model, like the number of parts that are coming together. You kind of have to develop an intuition. So this, let's see, I can reference my sketch here to remember. Yeah, I had that being 12 millimeters. Like so. You mean curving this scooper here? I don't know. Yes, a lot of the designs online do have this comb being curved, but all the old designs just use a flat rake, probably because they were mostly designed in metal. But I also don't see the value. Like, maybe it's a slightly better, but the fact that I'm going to be printing this flat is more important for me in this case. So now we can do the fillets here. I'm going to start by just kind of eyeballing. I think we can do a pretty dramatic one, maybe even all the way. So this is almost down to the edge here. So let's go with a nice and even 50. And since this is a 3 millimeter thickness, I can add fillets here that are 53. And that means the wall thickness will be consistent. Another thing I can add into that sketch is we're going to have something connecting to the handle. Or maybe we'll just have a dovetail joint there too. So, I'm not, okay. Another quick sketch I gotta do for you guys. Hopefully I can explain this. So dovetail joints, like I explained, they're cool in 3D printing because you can connect things that were printed at different orientations. But that said, dovetail joints are best printed only in a few directions. So you can print them vertically. And sorry, I didn't really define dovetail joints at the top of this live stream, but it's basically, this represents a dove's tail. That's how it got its name. It looks like a bird tail. And that fits into another part like a puzzle piece. Swoop. So this is one way to print a dovetail, with the layer lines being like this. Nice and easy, just a straight vertical extrusion. That's about as easy as it gets for your 3D printer. No overhangs, no nothing. You can also do angled dovetail joints, which are kind of fancy. Something like that, which is probably what we'll be doing for the combs at the front of this picker. But you can also print a dovetail flat, like this. So there is a weakness here. You have to make sure it's wide enough so that there's plenty of surface area so this part doesn't snap off. But yeah, generally this angle will be, it can be gentle enough that you can still print that without supports. So that's two ways to print the dovetail. And then for the so-called female side of the dovetail joint, you can also print it flat on the bed like that, with just a slight amount of bridging, which the printer can also handle. Is there more than that? You can print a sideways dovetail joint like this, which is kind of an unconventional dovetail, but if you have the other part like so, it'll still lock together, even though there's only one, this side is flat, you know, and this side has the angle. Well, we might do some of that in this design as well, if that makes any sense. I guess it's better I show you things in practice. I hope some of this makes sense to y'all. Always working on my communication skills. So yeah, where was I? Yeah. So yeah, just the reason I brought that up was because I was thinking, oh, maybe this will be a dovetail joint like this. But my idea for the handle is to print it on its side like so. And doing a dovetail joint like that would not print well without support material. So instead, I'm just going to have kind of a loop that goes around the handle. It's just going to pop into place, and this whole part is really just adding a little bit of extra support to this connection. This will be the main connection between the handle and the bucket. And this strap on top, this bit, is just because, again, when we're pulling up our blueberry picker, it's going to create some leverage here. It's going to make a stronger part. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm bad at describing things sometimes. So, where are we? I think I am actually going to go back a step. This will be the actual handle. At first it was just a reference, but it's more or less exactly what I need. So I'm just going to go ahead and finesse it a bit. Give that a fillet. And now the thickness here and the thickness here are not the same, so this is kind of just going to go by visual here. I'll make it 15 as well. And actually, I'll make this bottom one a little less. 10 even. Yeah, that looks okay. Now to make this handle more comfortable, we need to round it out a bit. But since I'm printing it on its side like this, I don't want to do a fillet. Some people do design prints like this, but there's kind of a theoretically very steep overhangs when you do that. So instead, I like to do chamfers first, and then I fillet those chamfers. So we can do something like this. Maybe 4 millimeters. And then we can chamfer these edges here, like so, to round it out a bit more. That looks good. So yeah, there are still some sharp sides. Technically, yes, I could round this out, but I prefer symmetry just for the visual aspect of things. I'm sorry, I know function before form, but it's pretty much the same thing I did with my dustpan here. And it did make for a nice, comfortable handle. Since this is at least like just a 45-degree angle, it's not a sharp edge per se, like a 90-degree would be. Okay, that's pretty much it. I'm not going to put finger grooves in the handle or anything like that. Although, I don't know. I don't think that'll actually improve the design, but maybe once I put it to use, we'll see if I feel like my hand is slipping on the grip. And in that case, I'll be able to just print a new handle and keep the rest of my design the same. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna save again. So yeah, the reason I went back and added all those chamfers and fillets to the handle back here was so that I can jump back forwards here. And I'm actually going to drag that sketch forward. That way I can now reference this new shape in this sketch. So I can project this whole face, double click to select the whole chain, and then offset that. Was it 0.2 or 0.1? 0.18. One thing I don't like about Fusion is I can't now go and select this and offset it. That gives me an error. Instead, I have to select the original one, and then I can, for example, do 0.18 plus 3 millimeters. And that'll give me a 3 millimeter wall with the 0.18 millimeter clearance there. So that's nice. Let's draw a line just to connect this straight up. Make that a little stronger. Now we can select finish, go back to this feature, and add these profiles to that extrusion. Bada boom. I'll be honest, when I'm designing things on my own, off the live stream, I put a lot more time into like the looks of things. This already looks kind of clunky to me, but it is very much just a function-based design. But I don't know. We'll see if I'm happy with it at the end of all this. And I'm already wondering if I need to cap this off or have some kind of tab that snaps into place. Also, since this is a 3 millimeter wall and we have a sharp edge here, what you can do is fillet this 3 millimeters, and that'll also ensure that the wall thickness is 3 millimeters all the way around that curve. And then for consistency, I'll also just give that a 3 millimeter radius, a little bit extra strength. Definitely an interesting look. So, I keep thinking ahead a bit. I know this comb is going to have to dovetail onto these side panels. So I'm wondering if this needs to be not meeting up right at that point, but a little further back, aka should I make this whole thing a few millimeters longer? Where is it at now? It's already kind of... Oh, well, these are going to be printed in separate parts. So. And this is going to dovetail. Oof. I think when I was first thinking this up, these supports were going to be on the inside. And this back piece was going to dovetail on the inside. I want to be able to... I want one... On these side panels, either the outside or the inside should be completely flat for the sake of printability. Ideally. I mean, there are ways to make this work. I think I'm going to be making some slight adjustments to this whole bucket part right here. Speaking of which, it can be handy to name the parts now that they're coming together. Bucket, handle support. This is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts of its own at least. Yeah, I mean, I wanted the inside to be just as simple as possible. Again, that's why I put this on the outside so that nothing would be interfering with all the berries that I'm scooping up. Although it probably wouldn't matter. Hmm. Yeah, I'm still leaning towards keeping it like this. This back piece will, I'll have to do some magic there to add the dovetail there. So for now, let's look at this part. Like I said, or yeah, let's go ahead and start this process here. This dovetail is going to go all the way to the bottom here. And this whole piece is going to be printing flat exactly as it's oriented here. So I am going to be doing one of those funky dovetails that I sketched out earlier. First, I'll project this so that I can reference from this. But yeah, rather than doing a typical dovetail, which looks more like this, I'm going to make this one completely flat so that we have that flat surface that this is all printing up from. And all that means is I generally want this angle to be a little bit sharper. With my dovetail joints, I'll usually go something like 70 and 70 on both sides. But when I'm doing it only on one side, I want this to be a little bit steeper. Maybe as much as 50. The steeper that angle is, basically the harder it is going to be for a part to pull off. Am I thinking correctly right now? I think so. If you can make a dovetail nice and wide, the wider the better. Actually, like ideally here, this will go from this midpoint to this midpoint. That way, both this part here and the other part that's going to be connecting to this both have a lot of surface area and make strong parts. Oh, we got a bug. Time to close the window. My nose is itching. Again, opening the window, and then the allergies, all the pollen gets in here. Hey Gunny, if you suddenly have ghosting on your 3D printer, that could be a sign of a belt getting loose, so you want to make sure your belts are all nice and tight. And hopefully the rods are also not getting worn down. It's always a good idea to lubricate those rods relatively often so that the friction doesn't wear down the rod and create more clearance than there should be. And when there's clearance, it basically leads to ghosting. I think the K1C probably should have some kind of compensation, some kind of calibration routine that you might be able to run for that. But I don't have that printer, nor do I have much experience with it. So, let's see. So, height of this dovetail, it's 3 millimeters again. Should be okay. I'm definitely willing to adjust this going forward. Ah. So yeah, the thicker I make this dovetail, the thicker I have to make the whole side panel. Not necessarily. I try to keep things simple, but with this whole like working as like figuring things out as I go strategy, there are definitely some intricacies that will come out of the design. So far, I'm thinking this is okay. So yeah, I'm trying to think out this side panel. The side panel is actually one of the most complicated parts because it's connecting to this support, it's connecting to the back, the bottom, and the comb. There's a lot of interaction here. Well, in this same sketch, I can at least add the offset here. I'm going to stick with 0.18 for now. Hey, Fundle, thanks for the kind words. Yeah, I wouldn't be doing this if people didn't appear to enjoy it, so I appreciate that. All right, so I created an offset here, and I'm gonna close it off so that I can cut that out of my side panel. Ah, my nose is itching like crazy. I did not take allergy meds today. All right. I'm just gonna do some quick figuring things out here. Let's see what I'm doing. I think I'm just gonna kind of start recreating the individual pieces. So this will be the back. Yeah, if you have ghosting, generally you want to tighten the belts on your printer, but also definitely don't want to take it too far. If you over tighten, that can cause its own problems. So you kind of need to figure out if that is in fact what's wrong in the first place. Which, yeah, maybe check out the Discord because there's a lot of smarties on there who know the technical side of 3D printing better than I do. So I'm creating this shape that's pretty similar to what I did for the other side of the handle. And this, I think I'll just be able to sweep it. Let's see what happens. Nah, it's giving me an error. I mean, is there a reason for this to not go all the way through? All right. So sweeps generally need two sketches. One, which is the profile that you want to sweep, which is basically to just extrude along a line that's not necessarily planar to that sketch. So in this case, we want to do a diagonal sweep, but you can also use it for curves and fancier stuff. But you need an edge or a sketch to go off of. So in this case, I'm going to create one sketch that goes from here up to here. It's basically going to end at the same height as this thingy thing. And then from here, I'm just going to create another sketch that's also parallel, but goes down to the bottom. That's a separate sketch that I'm going to use for the end cap at the bottom of this, this little connector I'm making. Let me try to show you. So again, this is what I want to sweep, and now I have this sketch, and yay, it's happy, except it's not totally happy. It's not connected. Because I was referencing the bottom of this sketch versus this. Yeah, it would have been better if this handle was lined up with the bottom of this, even if I was going to cut it away later. I'm making things a little more complicated for myself, which happens when you're designing on the fly. This is definitely not the best strategy. For example, if you were ever planning on sharing your file with other designers, because it's going to be harder for people to make sense of this file. But since this is just designed for 3D printing, we can be a little bit dirty with our designs. Let's add a few more colors. I am going to end up combining these parts, but for the time being, I'm still going to keep them separate because it might come in handy. So now I can re-enable both of those sketches, and now I'll do a second sweep that includes this area, essentially creating a cap on the bottom. Make it a new body again. Like so. Let's see, we can select this plane and create a section analysis to get a better idea of what we're working on here. As you can see, this does butt up right against that part, which should be fine. You don't really need clearance there. Maybe you would technically want a tiny bit, but with the way I'm designing things, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Okay. So this is going to be kind of the back part, but that's going to want to connect to the side panel here. So how is that going to happen? This is going to print in this orientation. So we can do a lot of different types of dovetails here. Let me maybe say 3. Make a little side panel type thing here. That's probably, I'll be able to take off some mass here. It doesn't need to be 6 millimeters thick, but if it's printing like this, what kind of dovetail can we do? We can do one of those weird ones again. So this actually should be thicker. We're gonna make this 6. 6, again, I'm doing that because I'm basing it off of my 3 millimeter default wall thickness, which tends to work well for a lot of making strong parts. And then by making that 6, it means I can add some joints too, some dovetails. I don't know. That probably doesn't make sense, but just keep following along, and maybe one day it will make sense. So down here, we have this overlap. which is where the dovetail is going to happen. And I'll rotate this to keep it oriented the way that I'm planning on printing this, to make sure I'm thinking things through. This isn't great, actually. Well, I was thinking it might be bad if this part is too thin, but the layer lines are going to be going in this direction. So even if I make it 1.6, 2 millimeters thick, it should be strong enough. Let's see. Yeah, actually the orientations of both of these work well, that my dovetail should be strong enough. If I make that not 2.4, but like 2.6, so that I can offset this, minus 1.8, minus 0.18, not 1.8. Is that enough of an angle? Maybe. All right, to be honest, splitting this into so many different parts might decrease my chances of pulling this off successfully on my first try. So now I'm going to sweep this along this edge just to cut away from that side panel. And again, I didn't name my bodies. Oh, but I got lucky. So that, like that. Let's name these side, side. And those are all part of the back. For those of you joining late, I'm making a blueberry picker. I'm gonna pick myself some wild blueberries. And it's gonna be extra satisfying since I made the tool myself. Custom sized to fit my fists. All right, let's re-enable that sketch. And now we can select these two and do the same sweep, but this time cutting it out of that back panel. So we only want it to apply to the back. That's what I'm doing down here. Oof, did I do something wrong? Ah, this first one should have included that. And yeah, this, I forgot to do the clearance there, but maybe, do I want to have that much clearance? I don't know. I feel like I might be doing too much clearance on some of these parts. That is something that we can adjust fairly easy later in the design process, even though it's maybe a little controversial, not the most proper way to do things, but there's this press pull feature, which you can always go in later on and just select a face and adjust it. So if we say, oh, that is way too loose, then we can just shift that in. We can select all of these and shift them in. Yeah, here again, there's also just a flat surface butting into the other. But I think that's okay. Another way to make these dovetails much stronger is just with some more little fillets. Although we want to make sure that it's not too much like that. We still want a lot of surface area contacting each other. But maybe if we do that, 0.4 there, and then these can be 0.4 plus the 0.18 millimeter clearance. No, let's not do it here. It's a little messy. It's a little messy. I'm not gonna lie. I'm probably not doing my finest work here. And again, want to make sure I'm coloring all of my parts different colors as much for as long as I can to just make sure I'm not accidentally combining things. And at this point, I am pretty much just going to be designing all of this on one side. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a lot quicker to just design all these things on one side and then mirror it over afterwards. So far, all of this seems printable. So, I need to start thinking about the bottom panel now. I was thinking of doing a groove where you would basically slide the bottom in, but with this current design, I wouldn't be able to print a groove in here. Does that matter? The good thing with this blueberry picker is I don't need it to be watertight or anything, so as long as everything is being held in place, somehow it should work out. I think this might still be okay. So basically, let me try and add that groove in right now. I want to select that plane, but look at it from here. That groove is intersecting with this dovetail unless we change some things. This handle doesn't need to go all the way down, so we could do the push-pull tool here, but I generally use the more default extrude if I can, just making sure I only apply it to this support. So yeah, this might only go up this far, for example. Let's go a whole 10. Well, is that going to help? We're still going to need... Whoa. It's getting crazy here. Because this I need to cut out of the side panel. I'm really already regretting all these 0.18 millimeter clearances. I feel like 0.15 is probably better. And yet, I'm not stopping myself. So this is going to go all the way down like that, making sure it's only cutting the side panel. So, yeah. The idea is that this piece would slide on. Oh, yeah, that's not going to work. I wanted it to slide on like that, but because I curved this, it ain't working so well. So I can either make this all shorter, or I can uncurve this a bit, or maybe a little bit of both. Now that there's a reason to, I think I can definitely reduce this a bit. Let's just make it 30. Oh, not 300. 30 and 33. Should still be fine, right? Now, if I just quickly simulate that, oops, lift, that should work. Should be just enough to be able to slide that into place. And then when you're lifting up on the handle, it's gonna lift everything up together. Yes, yes. Now. Where was I? I was sketching here. This is getting messy real fast. There's gonna be a groove here. Three deep. 3 there. 3.2 there. Now, if you're trying to select a sketch and there's other things in the way, you can always just click and hold. And then you get this drop-down menu. Very handy. We want this sketch to start from this surface and then come all the way out. Let's make sure we're only cutting the side panel. So yes, we do have this little interesting element going on here, but they're not interfering with each other. This is still printable, definitely. This, will it be strong enough? It's a long surface, but it only has 3 millimeters in this direction. I think it's strong enough. I don't know how much force is really going through a blueberry picker, if I'm being totally honest. It's kind of tricky to design one of these things without ever having used one before. Oh, for those wanting to know how I get my keyboard shortcuts up, I'm using a program called KeyViz. Keyviz. And yeah, it's weirdly hard to find good programs. And this one's still not perfect. I mean, it shows things. I don't know. I don't remember, but I remember when I was trying it out, there were certain keys it wasn't showing. But yeah, I'm glad it's helpful for you guys. Is this all going to come together? I also have to keep in mind the assembly process. I think this arm, for example, is going to be flexible enough that I can pop things together. And that actually might work in my advantage for holding everything together in the end. But, you know, I have to be able to slide this dovetail on and this dovetail on. And this handle has to slide all the way into here, and this has to go into there. It's a bit crazy. I still have to add another dovetail to the front here where the comb is going to come in. It's wild. What if I add a plug beneath the support bar? Right here. To make sure the sidewall is sturdier there. Yeah, that definitely would be a pretty quick thing to do. At this point, I'm not too concerned. I still feel like this will be generally a strong enough part. But while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and add these little radii again. Whoops. think 0.6 will work well. Oh wait, can't do that here because I gotta think about how it's printing. That'll work. 0.6. Oh, this gets a little funky. This might not. Let me see. 0.78. Oh, that still works. Still works. Yeah, by standard engineering and design practices, this workflow I'm going through here is not the best. Obviously, if I were creating like an end product that has to be manufactured, maybe I would do all this, but then I'd have to start over and create something more intentionally. But 3D printing is so forgiving that we can get a little crazy. And this kind of just figuring it out step by step may or may not work out. Up to a certain level of complexity, it works. This being like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, a 7-part design. I don't know. Maybe I'm pushing the limit a little bit. Near the end of this design, I might have to do some really ugly stuff. We'll see. I haven't hit a complete roadblock yet, so that's good. I do want to start thinking about this front comb, how it's going to stick on. I know it's going to dovetail down, or that's kind of my idea. I could do a dovetail right here, have it be a little bit wider. Could work, could work. There's going to be more of a mess down here, for sure. But the dovetail doesn't, the comb can stop at the bottom here. Okay, let's see. Let's see. I'm going to go back into this sketch. Where's that sketch? Right here. I should be able to drag this line. No, strange. But anyways, let's create the bottom panel here. At this point, I'm just going to go halfway since I am going to end up mirroring everything anyways. What? There's some weird, I don't know why it's showing as both a construction line and a solid line. Fusion might be starting to protest. Here I am going to finally do a tighter clearance with just 0.12 because I want this to be a nice good fit. 0.15 here. So I'm going to select all of this. Oh. 1. No. 2. Whoop. Like that. So again, I'm going to have it start from this plane, since these are kind of angled and weird, and go up to this plane. Boom. Make sure it's set to new body. So we're not fusing it to this back here, even though it's going to butt up against it. So that's looking like that. And then we're gonna need one final dovetail here to slide on the front cover, or the comb, the most important part here. Sorry, my design keeps ending up behind my head, even though there's all this space on the screen. Gonna save again. Why programs like this don't have like a autosave built in where it just saves every 5 minutes? I mean, okay, I gotta give credit where it's due. Fusion does have if the program crashes, maybe 50% of the time or even more, it will save a recovery file. So that's nice. That's better than Adobe Premiere, for example. Better success rate for saving crash projects, but it should really be standard in any kind of program that has a tendency to crash every now and then. There should be autosave built in. Okay, at this point, I really should figure out the comb here. And I also hate that this is still 6 millimeters thick, but I think I will be able to cut this down like that, down to 3 millimeters for a lot of this. But this front piece, maybe... Do I extend it a little more? That is the question. Extend it more or have... Because there's so much going on right here. I could just have the dovetail be a few millimeters further ahead. Let me really quickly sketch this out. Again, I'm going to rotate it to the orientation that I'm printing in, just to keep that in mind as often as I can. I don't want to make a silly mistake. Those of you who have been with me for a long time know that I will do everything in my power to avoid support materials. Generally, it's just something that can be done, so it should be done. That's how I feel about it. Unless you end up making a dumb design just for the sake of sparing like half a gram of filament in support material. So. Let's see what happens if I were to just make this one of these dovetail joints again. Maybe something like this. Or even simpler. Just like this. I'll fillet that. This can be a nice and easy 45. This can be vertical. No, something. Oh, yeah. It's already got the perpendicular constraint there. Maybe 50. Like so. How large is this? 4 millimeters. Let's make it 3.6. Yeah, SolidWorks. It definitely had a lot of crashing in there on there too. I mean, Fusion, it seems to have gotten a lot better in terms of not grinding to a halt. Of course, if you still do like some crazy sketch pattern, you can definitely crash Fusion, but it used to be that it crashed way more often in my mind, and getting like a really nice fancy computer wasn't helping either. Like I always wanted to upgrade my CPU or GPU, but it was just like, no, it's just the way this program is programmed. It'll just crash at a certain level. Okay, I'm doing a sweep here. Is that the right thing to do? I think it is, but I want this to be parallel so that it stays flat. Do I want it to go all the way through this? It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. That's a way to keep it from getting too complicated. This dovetail joint can stop here. And it should still be plenty strong enough. Let me think about this. That is a weird joint I just created. I can definitely make that stronger, especially with this. Well, yeah, I'm gonna just move a little bit further ahead for a second here. In the same sketch, I can pretty much plan out the comb on the front. It would be something like this. But if I give these some flat sides, it might be stronger. But a fillet is essentially doing the same thing. This, I will be able to fillet all of them. I can make this 4. This is, I want it to all hold together, so I'm gonna make it that 0.15, but this is gonna be a mere 0.2 millimeter clearance, 0.12 millimeter clearance, which is quite tight. Of course, clearances still depend on 3D printers. I'm so thankful that printers are getting better and better these days, so that it's more likely that models print out consistently between different printers. But it's always been a goal of mine to try to print things or try to design things so that they'll print even on a only half good 3D printer. Even though I'm blessed now to have a Bamboo X1 Carbon that can do super precise prints, I still want my designs to hopefully work with an Ender 3 clone or something like a beginner printer. That's always the goal. In terms of this design, we'll see. It might need some finessing. All right, once again, I'm just gonna design to the halfway point here. The comb will be something like this. I could have it come up further to potentially make it a bit stronger. We'll see if that's necessary down the line. This, I'll make it a nice 5 millimeters. I mean, yeah, it's a bit clunky. It's stuff happening outside of the basket, but I'll make it 6 even, because there is going to be probably a decent amount of force as I'm pulling this through a blueberry bush, and this is printing in this orientation where, yeah, it's not super strong, but I think it'll be strong enough. And I want it to be more than strong enough. There's this balance I'm trying to walk here. I don't want to make things unnecessarily bulky, but I definitely want a long-lasting design. So let's see. This dovetail obviously will only go up to here. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to use that line. Make it a new body. Let's start coloring these things again. And I can reuse some colors. I don't have to create a new color for every part, as long as like they're clearly different parts, like these 2 red parts. Another fun thing, as I've mentioned in other videos about printing in so many parts, is I could actually print this in all these different colors. And that'd be a nice wild blueberry picker. I was reading about an article, or I was thinking about an article I read earlier today about how you should wear light colored clothing to repel mosquitoes. I doubt that's super effective, but maybe I could design some mosquito repelling properties into the blueberry picker. Maybe I print that with bright colors. Maybe I add a little holder for some citronella on the back. A little incense stick poking out the top. I don't know. I do remember there was a citronella filament. So you could actually 3D print allegedly mosquito repelling parts with that. Haven't seen too much of it, but I'd love to try that out if it's worked for anyone. Okay, so that's the extent of that part. Now I can finish this as a side sketch here. Again, a bit janky, but this is going to come down like this with a very slight gap here. I mean, this could be 0.1 millimeter. It could effectively be 0. I mean, yeah. I'll make it 0.01, which is basically what I do when I want there to be 0 clearance, but I also don't want to accidentally join them together while I'm designing it. Although that won't happen because I am color coding everything so nicely. This could theoretically wrap under the bottom. We'll see if that's necessary. So I'll extrude that up to here. See, because I did that 0.01, that's a little bit of clearance, I can now just use a join operation. But in terms of best practices, it's actually a little bit safer to just add the step of making it a new body and then using the combine function to combine them. Otherwise, sometimes when you change things earlier in the design, it'll cause downstream effects. So this is just a bit more resilient. We've got this like weird shelf down here. I'll probably be able to cut that away later. With the way things are going in this design, I'm definitely thinking I'm going to design this kind of over-engineered part, and then towards the end, I'll be able to start trimming things away and making it look pretty again. Another benefit of printing in so many parts is that I can use different filaments for every part. So the comb on front, for example, to be really nice and strong, I'll probably use a ABS or ASA. But then some of the other parts, like this handle, could probably do just fine as a PLA print, which is just a little bit easier to print. Creates less fumes in the process of printing. While this is for outdoor use, as long as I'm not leaving it out in the sun, I think PLA is still fine to work with. Yeah, I definitely need to get myself some essential oils and put together some kind of mosquito repellent, but I gotta say, not to brag, but mosquitoes love me. It'll take a lot for them not to go after me. This is probably a bit too thick. I think it is overkill. I'll trim that down a little bit right off the bat. Make that 4. And I can also start to beautify this a little bit and reinforce it with that dealio. So we'll go up to object and then offset at 0.1. Again, good practice, make it a new body and then combine it rather than a straight up join. Okay. Whoops, what did I do here? When did that happen? Whoops. I should have been using this line. Or, it's because I had a larger gap than necessary right there. Let's see. This to object. I mean, this gap realistically will not be causing any problems. What am I doing? Save, no, Control S. Yeah, ABS, oh my God, it smells awful. I really tend not to use it, except I just have some because Bamboo sent it to me, but I'll almost always use ASA instead, which also has fumes of its own, but it's not as stinky as ABS. Just wondering if this bit here is going to annoy me. But like Viviane was mentioning, maybe I put a cap here and it actually would be held in place by this part. But it's probably also just an unnecessary piece. I guess I still want to avoid too many unnecessary parts. What was the... That was 0.4. And this is how far apart are these lines? Oops. Another nice pro tip is you can just select two surfaces and then, well, maybe not. Or a surface and a point, for example. And Fusion right down here will tell you, add a little tidbit of information. So here it lets me know that the minimum distance here is 0.18. Because I forgot about the clearance on that part specifically. So now I can know that this is 4 with a 0.8. So 4 plus 0.18. 0.4. Oi, oi, oi. 0.4 plus 0.18. And then I get the perfect radius for that part. Okay, this is a crazy thing, isn't it? I think at this point it is safe for me to combine these bits. So let's think about how this whole thing will come together. Let's really think about this. this dovetail is going to want to be capped on the top or the bottom so that it doesn't slide all the way through. I think ideally, yeah, it would be capped at the bottom here, which means this part would need to slide in from above. But this part is sliding in from below. I'm kind of willing to bet that this part here is going to be flexible enough that when it's slid into place, I can still bend it forward and pop it over this handle. So that I could first slide the handle into here and then pop that over. And if I can do that, then I can get all of these parts together. Then I can slide in the bottom, and then I can finish it off by sliding in the comb. And if necessary, I can add some kind of tabs or locking mechanism so that that comb locks into place. And then everything will stay together. Right? Noah, Boolean operations. I think in most softwares it's good practice because the join function, okay, at least in Fusion, the join function will depend on which bodies are visible, for example. So if you're designing something, you might have a part hidden, and then when you join, you do an extrude and join two things together, it'll create one part. But then if you go back and forth, and the second time it runs through that operation, that body that was hidden is no longer hidden. Maybe it becomes a part of that body. Basically, there's more opportunities for the software to reinterpret. It's less clear for the software. I guess in general, the good practice is to break things up into several steps that are more clear and can't be confused by the software, if that makes sense. It's definitely happened to me where I like design something and then you run through it again from the beginning like this. And yeah, at a certain join, it joins things that weren't joined the first time around. Even though software is supposed to be non-ambiguous, yeah, specifically with the join function. Whether that's an extrude or revolve or sweep, all kinds of things where there's a join. If there's a body that's hidden one time and then visible the second time that the program runs through it, then it can have different results. And you want consistency here. That is definitely the name of the game. I think now's a good time to actually split everything in half. So I'm just going to create a big box. Schlump, chop this all away. And just work on this half of the design until we're near the finish. It's almost 11 here. So will I be able to finish within an hour? That's a good question. I do not know. I think I'm pretty far along. This part where this snaps in is going to maybe take a little bit of work. And actually, should I have cut it in half? This part might be easier to design, not cut in half. Okay. Spoke too soon. I'm going to keep things how they are. I can start rounding these things off. Oops. Selecting the wrong things here. Here we go. So yeah, this is one of those dovetails where it's sliding together at an angle. Everything doesn't have to come straight together, so that's kind of neat. What's next? I'm kind of optimistic again. I've been dubious throughout this whole process, but now I'm feeling like this might work out. This might work out. Let's go ahead and create the snapping mechanism here, which, how do I want to do it? Basically, I'm going to create a tab. I'm going to cut a bit out of this handle so that it's a little more flexible. And then I'll have a little bump on this part. So a little tab that snaps into place. So let's do that now. I'm backtracking again. I am, in fact, going to cut this in half. Whoops. I am cutting this in half because it makes it easier for me to reference some of the lines here. So let me show you what I mean. Now I can project this face and this face. Now I can create construction lines that are perpendicular to this and say I want from this point, or actually from this point to this point, I want it to be 1.6 millimeters. Let's make this 6. Let's make it 10 so it's a little less steep of an angle. This can be lower down. This I can offset by 0.01. I want it to be a nice tight fit. This I actually will make not a construction line because I'm going to use it for a revolve. I will define this a little bit more clearly, but I'm going to jump a little bit ahead to start seeing what I'm doing. So I'm going to do this revolve first to cut away from the handle. And then a second revolve here. Make that new body. And yeah, this one, I know I did make a mistake here. This line needs to extend a little bit further. And this cut should include that little extra clearance. Is that enough for a tight fit? This is another one of those things. I haven't done it too often. I did it for the dustpan, but I still don't know exactly how much of a bump I want. I think that's okay. These are all going to be rounded a bit, these edges. What did I do wrong? Oh, I have to combine these. So, and yes, these are full revolves, so it is a little awkward. But again, I'm going to keep cutting it in half from this point, so it's actually fine. Let's hide this handle. Why is it stopping here? I did something wrong. Is it? What's going on there? So this cut is good. And this one, there's a gap of some sort. Huh. I would think that's okay, but no worries. I can just draw another line a little bit further back here. And use that instead to make sure it's fully intersecting. No, something's still weird here. Did I accidentally cut out of both bodies? I did. So this first cut should have only affected the outside, and this one only the inside. Here, there's some weirdness too. Let's clean that up a little bit. Okay, there we go. That should do. Although I am going to move this bump up so that I can round this bottom bit so that it snaps into place more easily. Yoink. Like so. See ya, Velociraptor. All right, so that should snap in. I can also round this a little bit for ease of assembly. That should work out fine. This strange cross-section here has me thinking I did something wrong. One of these cuts is not right through the middle. We'll get to that when we get there. Anyways, yes, now we have this tab, but if I just tried to snap this into place, there's no way that would get through. So I actually have to cut through this part here. So to do that, I'll project this again. And then I pretty much want a slot. So yeah, why don't we use the slot tool? Like so, like so, like so. And by the way, if you're making parts and you don't want to accidentally create constraints, like this midpoint, for example, you can hold Control while you're creating any sketch and it'll avoid creating constraints, because typically Fusion likes to automatically try to snap to things, but sometimes you don't want it to. So now I can add my constraints. Let's see. So by making this, what, 2.4, I know that I want this to be at least 2.4 so that it can flex by that same amount. It's 7, so I'll make it like 3.2. And also the longer you make it, the easier it'll flex. So I'll just keep that right below the point of view here. I think I'm doing this right. Let's do symmetric cut. Make sure we're only cutting through the handle. So this is still very chunky. Maybe we want to move it this way. And we can even create a constraint here. So when you're creating a constraint with a round thing like this, if you just click on it, it's going to measure from the center of that circle. But if you click and hold, if you select the dimension tool, click and hold. No, am I doing it wrong? Sorry, right click. Then you can choose arc tangent instead of arc center. And now I can measure the distance between, the minimum distance between these two features. So let's make that 2.4. And yeah, why not make this 4? So it's a little easier to flex. But I think, yeah, that's going to create a problem here. Now we've got this really thin part that will not print so nice and easily. So now we got to make this wider, 3.2. It's a balancing act here. 1.4, Okay. I think instead I'm going to make this wider and make this larger. Make the tab really as long as it can possibly be while staying hidden by making it tangent to the top of the back here. So from the outside, you won't notice it. From the inside, we got this big flexible tab, all for the sake of popping onto this notch and locking the handle into place. I could have referenced my dustpan since I already have that working, but I just wanted to show you what my first attempt looks like. There's a chance I'll have to go back and reprint one of these parts to make this a really good balance between snapping firmly, but not too firmly. It's really a balance. You want it to snap, but also stay in place. I think this will work. Another thing here to make this print a little bit more nicely is to fillet this. 0.8 millimeters or so should do, just so it's not coming to a complete point. Maybe I'll even do 1.2. Nope, too much. 0.8 it is. That should work out. All right, how's everyone feeling? What are we? More than 2 hours into this jam by now, right? Feels like it's been even longer, to be honest. I wish I could say I've been fully flow state, just grooving through this, but there have been moments of stress. But getting this done in 3 hours, I'd say, is a pretty good achievement. And I think we might even beat that time. We still have to build a bit of a sift down here so that bugs and little crumbs and stuff will fall through. And the comb up front. While geometrically complex, those should actually be relatively simple things to make. What else do we have here? I mean, I feel like we're pretty far along. I might just need to do those two things and then kind of enter the trimming phase. I'm going to use this again. Well, no need. OCD wants me to chop this half of the dome off right away, but I guess I can do it this way. It is technically adding a step to my design that I don't need to do yet or ever, but it was annoying me. How do I keep track of things without components? yeah, maybe it's not my best practice to not use components, but I feel like it's easier for me to keep things in one design. And keeping track is simply a matter of coloring separate parts, so I know what's separate, and naming parts as well. Which, thanks for the reminder, because it's good to do that often. Bottom. This will be the comb. Yeah, I mean, I've honestly never had too much trouble with those things in mind. I'm seeing here that we can add a bit of a fillet here. Add a little bit of strength to this part. I think we're intersecting there. Maybe just a 1 millimeter fillet. It's honestly more than enough. Yes, yes. I think I'm just delaying at this point. I think it's time to mirror this. Well, some parts want to be mirrored and some parts don't. We definitely want to mirror the bottom here and the comb. So I'm going to mirror, and I can just use one of the edges here. Now that I've mentioned earlier in the stream that it's better practice to use new body instead of joining, if I'm being honest, I normally would use a join here. I don't think there's too much of a chance that I accidentally join parts, but good practice. Let's do it. New bodies, and then join them. All right. Let's do the comb. You know what? Also, just for visualizing things. Do I want to mirror everything right now? Yeah, I mean, it's adding steps, but that doesn't burden the program too much. Basically, I know I'm mirroring things, but I'm also going to end up still making changes to this side panel, for example. So I'm going to end up replacing everything on that side. But for now, to keep it easy and to visualize the whole part, I'll go ahead and unsplit it. So, how fun. It definitely looks more like a woodworking project with all these flat faces compared to a typical 3D print with all the things that could be done with a 3D print. Yes, dovetail joint is the topic. I mean, these are unconventional dovetail joints, but they are still dovetail joints. Right there, we've got one. Right here, we've got one. Is it just those? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we've got like 6 dovetail joints here. And we've also just got a groove joint here with this bottom piece sliding into place on the bottom. And then I don't know exactly what to call this, a plug and socket, a random. We got all kinds of joints happening here. And I can't even name them all. I learned them in college at some point, but it doesn't help that much in practice. Especially when I'm just working by myself. I haven't become too concerned with describing everything. It might bite me in the butt someday. All right, let's do the comb here. So for this, I'm going to project a few things. First, that face, but I'll also project these sidewalls and this bottom line, because that's going to create this new rectangle, which is basically all of the surface area that is going to be doing the combing. And, whoops. Now let's hide some parts just so they're out of the way. when you do a lot of a lot of parts, it's definitely better to it's generally better for the program not crashing to create solids and patterning those and then cutting them away from the object. Yeah, I guess I will do that. I was debating whether I'd do a sketch pattern or a solid pattern. Let's do it properly. Why not have a roof like most of them have? I considered that. Will my hand be brushing up against bushes and getting irritated because there's no roof? I don't know. In my mind, it's actually more convenient not to have a top because then I can have a clear view of what I'm scooping up. And if I scoop up a big old spider, I can get rid of that right away versus dumping that into my bucket full of blueberries or whatever. I just feel like it's easier to see what you've just scooped and get rid of excess branches and leaves or whatever happens to fall off. Casualties of the pick. Let's see here. I think I actually want how do I want to do this? I might do this as a sweep. Again, there's so many ways to do this, but I kind of want this to match. Let me just do it. Let me do it and then figure out if I'm actually doing what I want to do. So I'm creating this rectangle, which could represent either a comb or the slot between the combs. I'm kind of going to have to figure out what works in terms of the spacing and how many combs I'm fitting onto my device here. But I think this is going to be the part that I cut away. And I'm just going to do some estimation. I don't know the magic scientifically best number, but the idea here is that it's wide enough that a branch can fit through and you can pull the berries off the branch, but it has to be not too wide, otherwise you'll end up just not pulling off the blueberries. So I'm gonna make a gap that's just smaller than the smallest blueberries I want to get. And by pulling up my calipers, that number, I mean, sometimes the smaller blueberries are the sweeter ones, but I think 7 millimeters. I think that's the number I'm going to start with. And if I end up regretting that decision, it's a small part that I have to replace on my device here. So for now, I'm also going to have this aligned to the center. I'm going to use the sweep tool. That's going to be my path. And the sketch I did right before that here that's my path. Profile and path. I'm going to make it go right up onto the bottom of this surface here. I will do it as a body instead of a cut. And then I can round these off. I'll fillet it. Ooh. Fillet it to the point where it doesn't do something weird like this. 3.5 makes sense since the whole thing is 7 wide. That looks good. Now I can go ahead and select that cut and do a pattern. So the spacing here is a different thing to consider. Basically, the smaller the splines of the comb are, the more potential I have to scoop up berries, but it also means that the part is going to be more fragile. Since this is being printed out of plastic, even if I use ASA, it's not going to be the strongest thing, so I want to make somewhat broad combs here. Maybe 7 millimeters as well. Oh, the cheese is back. I still don't understand the cheese stream thing. Is that something that broadly happens across live streams, or is that just unique to Make Anything streams? So I'm using the combine tool here, and I'm going to do a cut. Yeah, y'all are funny. And now I can fillet all of these top parts. And since these are 8 millimeters wide, the fillet should be 4 millimeters if I'm not mistaken. So, all right. Honestly, with the length of these combs, I think they're still going to be a bit too fragile. So that's where 3D printing is awesome, because I can add some ribs to the top of these combs. I think that's the way to go. First, let me finish this off. Let's see. These are kind of sharp and pointy, so I'm going to do a chamfer on the bottom here. Let's see what 0.8 millimeters looks like. That's pretty good. And then I can fillet that as well. Is one too much, really? What's causing this not to work at higher values? I mean, 0.4 is enough, but I still like to diagnose. Oh, it's probably right here. No? Oh, yeah. So once this radius hits this bottom edge, Fusion says, no, thank you. And in this case, it's not so critical. So if I needed to do a 1 millimeter fillet, I could first extend this, do the fillet, and then cut away again. But in this case, I'm just going to take 0.7 millimeter fillets, and that's okay. Now, I'm going to draw on this surface. Was it you? Did you change your name? Wasn't it Taryn? I remember Taryn being a big cheese name, but a few people picked up on the cheese streaming situation. But that's awesome that it's unique to the channel. I appreciate it. I appreciate the silliness. And yes, I will eat a slice of cheese. Darn it, why not? Gouda, my favorite. Oh no, my cheese is going bad. This top slice has gotten a little crusty. That's a shame. I apologize, cheese lords, for letting some cheese go to waste. Yum. You know what? I needed it. I needed this nutrition for this final stretch of the design process. And it's an excuse to have a beer as well. All right, let's do this. I'm cheesed up, ready to go. Cheese and blueberries. That's what's next. All right. So I'm adding a rib here. And the way I'm going to do that is just by creating a slot from this point to this point. Let's make that a nice 3 millimeters wide. And I'm also going to project this bottom line so that I can isolate the profile without this unnecessary bit. Wait a minute. No. I got distracted. Sorry, that is not how I'm doing this. I'm creating the slot from here to here. 3 millimeters. And I can extend this geometry line here so that I can create this measurement. The height of my rib here, also 3 millimeters. Should be enough. Now I'll do a sweep with that profile and this other sketch that I created not long ago. It goes a bit too far, so we'll just pull that back, make this a new body. And I'll round that also with, oh, sorry, 1.5. No? Oh, come on, why is that not working? Maybe if I change this to chord length. There we go. No, it's still being a little finicky. I could create a little sweep here, or what else could I do? What's the best way to do this? Perpendicular, no, that doesn't change anything. I didn't want to get caught up on little details like this. Do I want to make a rib, or do I just want to make the combs thicker? It could be an opportunity to hide the seam here. Okay, I'm just designing on the fly here, so changing things up again. Instead, I'm going to select this surface. That's not going to work quite so well either because of these weird tangents. No, I'm second guessing myself right here. Okay. This is a bit roundabout, but I'm gonna create a midplane here and just do a section analysis. And then create a sketch here from the side so I can be a little more precise about what I'm trying to do. So let's project this, this, and then the rib. Do I want it to go all the way up to there? Yeah. So I'll create a line. Boom. From there to there. Then all the way down to here. That'll have a little gap. This will be parallel. 0.1 millimeter. .4. This might not be the way either. A little bit sloppy. But you know what? I'm just gonna pull this back a bit. So, oh my. Holy constraints, Batman. Let's just pull this down 2.4, since we don't really need the strength to come in until a bit later. Like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fillet all of these. 1.5. Yes, there we go. That was a pretty good looking comb. But maybe I want to round this a bit more. Let's see. Order of operations. So generally when you have a complex surface and you're going to have a bunch of fillets hitting other fillets, the general rule, rules are always meant to be broken, but the general rule is to do the largest fillets first. So in this case, I'll do this one. 8 seems good. And then I'll do a new fillet operation for these. Whoops, that are 1.5. And it comes out nice and clean. All right. Now this face right here, this is a bit awkward, but it'll print out okay. Yeah, should be fine. So now we'll just do another linear pattern of that body along this axis, going in both directions. Boop, 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 boop. Those last two are probably unnecessary. We want this to match the last pattern, so that's 15. Yeah, this rib, I mean, it does add strength. Is there any gap between those parts? Hold on. Let's just see this first. That might actually be perfect. I mean, it creates this weird pinch zone that could maybe get dirty. But okay. I won't include those last two ribs. I don't think they're necessary for the strength of the part, but I might add something later on. For now, let's go ahead, Shift C to combine all of these. Make sure that's set to join. Bop, 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 bop. Nice and strong. Now this, I could fill it. It would look a little bit prettier, but I think because we're printing like this, that would actually create some layers that are a little weaker. In this case, I feel like this direct. No. Let's round it a bit. Let's make that a chord length. No. Why all the second guessing at this point? You know what? These teeth, the force is going to be coming down. These ribs are not doing the trick. Ideally, they would be on the bottom, or they would run all the way through, which I could do. Because otherwise, yeah, it's just going to pull. There's nothing here that's really holding it in place. Yeah, these ribs aren't helping. I feel like if they go all the way through, maybe they'll help. But honestly, at this point, I should probably just make everything a little bit thicker. Sometimes simpler is the way to go. I will admit when I've made a mistake. So let's go all the way back. Further. And generally, when you make a change like this, it's better to do it further back. Maybe, I don't know. Let's make that 5. Let's see what happens there. Did I design right that it'll update everything? Nice, nice. Pat on the back for me. We could increase this a bit now. We can make this 1.2. Let's make it 2. No, too much. Too much. 1.6. And this. Those are some fun looking curves right there. Whoops, 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 whoops. There. Will these ribs be strong enough to handle the blueberry bushes? I don't know. Once again, I haven't gone blueberry. I've gone blueberry picking by hand, but that hasn't really given me a feel for how strong these devices have to be. But I feel like if I print that solid, it should certainly work. And if not, it's not the biggest part to reprint. So I'm going to stick with that for now. Okay, there's that. Now we've got this basket on the bottom, which we just want to give it some holes. To be honest, the very easiest way to do this would just to be printing this with 0 top and bottom layers. Add an appropriate infill that acts as a sieve. That would work, and it would be a nifty, fun way to take advantage of 3D printing. But I feel like actually modeling in the sift is maybe a better choice for reasons that I'm struggling to define right now. But why? Why do I feel that way? It's more consistent, I guess. Less likely to catch bacteria. Easier to clean. Pretty much easier to clean. Plus, I mentioned in the last video that I want to use more geometric patterns because they're fun. So let's do it. Let's do it with some hexagons. Again, the size of these holes is kind of a guesstimate for now, but I'll make it, I'll match the size of the combs here, which is 7 millimeters. So any blueberry that's smaller than that ain't worth my time. I'm getting the 7+ millimeter blueberries, and that'll help filter out some spiders and such. So this is going to be our tool. I'm going to do a symmetric new body here, just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a geometric pattern. I might need to do some extra steps, but let's see how this works. That's the face. This is the object. Let's do a triangular pattern. Bada boom. Looks nice. We can adjust the distance. If we make it 15, oh, I thought that would line up with the combs, but it didn't. But also we could do a few more. We want to really sift things out. 10 is too much. Wait, is triangular the right, or do I want to do hexagonal? Let's just play around with some of these. That looks weird. That looks wrong. Why does everything look wrong? Whoa. There we go. Almost. Let's see what happens if we match this. There. No, not quite. I'm still learning the geometric patterns, the way of the geometric pattern. Hey, Robin, I'm loving Sweden. Not sick of it yet. And everyone thought I was crazy coming here in the winter, but having been here for, I don't know, 7 months, 6, 7 months, the winter has actually been part of my favorite time. Yeah, we'll see how these combs hold up. I mean, it's definitely, I could always just go thicker and thicker with this one panel, and eventually that would solve the problem, and I don't think it would actually make the tool less effective. But yeah, I agree it's the weakest point. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, back to this. What am I failing to understand here? Why are none of these right? And this one looks cool. And if I select clear perimeter, it'll kind of like make things less. Yeah, I'm just playing around here. I actually haven't used this tool more than 3 or 4 times. LCG, yes, I am American, Californian, born and raised in the same little town. It's probably a big part of what drove me out here. Just the need for something new. Okay, looks like we need to do things a little bit differently. What happens if I create 2 of these bad boys? Make them equal. And these should be perpendicular here. The gap can be 3 millimeters at the least. This might be janky as well. Probably. Geometric pattern. Here's the face. Can I even select 2 objects? No, I can't. Ugh. But I can connect them into a tool. Yep, I'm still going. I don't know if that's a good thing or if it means I should be designing more quickly. Clearly, I'm not such a speed modeler. I thought I was doing this quick and dirty, but here I am. All right, so this is one part now. Let's see what happens this time around. Geometric pattern, custom object. And now I would want to do a rectangular one. Something like this. Hey, that's what I was going for. How do I don't know how to figure out these distances to actually be what I want. I might have to do a bit of eyeballing and maybe some guess and checking and maybe some coping with it not being perfect. Let's see what this is like. So 2.9 in that direction, 2.94, 2.94, 2.89, 2.91, and these ones that I controlled are exactly 3. Okay, I'm not going to get it perfect, but I'll try to get it closer. They're all a little bit small. So let's see what 9.95 does. Maybe it just has to be round numbers. 17.5 and 10. The wonders. Oh, not quite. Well, yeah, I got this one right now. And that makes sense because this was yeah, the distance between this side and this side is 10. 7 plus 3. But these are not as simple because they're in a different axis. What's U and what's V? Okay, 17.4. I'm just going to do a little bit of guessing checking and see how close that gets me. 3.069. Okay, I'm taking it. Cool. I kind of really like this pattern. It almost makes me want to cut it out like that versus the hexagon, which looks a little more plain. But would this let big blueberries through? Ah, I like it. I like this pattern. Is it the best? Maybe not, but sometimes you just do things for the coolness of it. Sweet. Okay, so I'm going to hide everything else. Or no, hold on. Need a little bit of a boundary here. Hey, Nick, Sofa. Glad you get to catch the live stream. You are pretty late, though. I'm nearing the finish here. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see if I can stay consistent with this or if this time works. I know I'm not a huge live streamer, so I don't get the crazy views. But I try not to do things for the views, you know? I try to do what's fun and what is valuable to some people at the very least. And I really hope this is somehow useful to some people. I know it's a long live stream to watch, so to actually get the takeaways from it is probably a lot of work. Okay, I'm going to do something a little bit crazy here again. And a little bit sketchy and rough. But I'm going to select all of these to project so that I can make a special cut. What am I doing? Is this right? Yes. Yes. I think I'm making sense to myself. At the very least, I can be proud knowing that this live stream will help some people fall asleep and maybe subconsciously learn something. I definitely think this live stream is maybe something to have on in the background. If I was able to capture your undivided attention, well, bravo to me. And bravo to you. When's the next Scalpa Alt video? That's a good question. I've had plenty of adventures since the last video, but the problem is, if I'm being completely honest, I don't have the vlogger's attitude. If I'm doing something fun, out and about, I tend to not want to document it because I like to live in the moment. But, you know, I've got videos here and there, so maybe I can put together a fun compilation. And I do enjoy showing off what I'm doing with the house. And of course, I know people like to hear my opinions on Sweden, especially the Swedes among the audience. But I don't have a straight answer for you. The next video is whenever I manage to find the time between doing these videos, which are my job, and I gotta catch up on taxes and adulting stuff. Okay, I think I've created the boundary here that I want to. I'm going to finish that sketch. Now I'm going to hide everything except for these two parts. Now I'm going to select this sketch. No. Why is it not letting me? There we go. Okay, I'm almost there. Do I have too many? Sometimes when you have multiple sketches open. There we go. Yeah, Fusion can spaz out. Being like, which sketch are you trying to select? One or two. And it just rapidly jumps between them. Whoops. So now I'm going to select all of these within my boundary. Yoop. Go symmetric. Intersect. So that's cutting some of these away. This is a little bit messy. Now I can hide some other ones that I meant to get. What happened with that one? Oh, there we go. What? There it is. Okay, quick rant. If anyone from Fusion is watching, it's so annoying when I miss a part like I did there, and then I have to scroll through this little objects to cut menu, which even if I extend this box down, which it's giving me enough trouble trying to do that, will it let me? Come on. Yeah, the UI here has some problems. There we go. I extend it, and look at that. Nothing. I can still only see 4 bodies at a time, and I have to carefully scroll through these hundreds of bodies. Just let me expand that whole box, please. It's one of the few remaining bugs that they need to get rid of. Anyways, now I'm gonna hide all of this that I'm not trying to include in this next big cut here. I'll go ahead and save my project because things are about to get wild. Now, well, I can already get ahead of things and remove these parts that I hid. And scroll all the way up here. Let's see, are these all? Yep, hiding all of these as well, which means I can remove them. Now let's turn the bottom back on. Use the combine tool. This is the main body. Then from the side, I'm going to select all of these. Boom. That's a pretty cool pattern, right? As derpy as this tool looks in general, I think that's a fun little detail. And I think it'll do a fine job of sifting through my collection. All right, I honestly think I could have a workable model at this point. And it is approaching midnight for me. I do have plans for tomorrow, so I'm tempted to stop here. And worst case, if everything doesn't fit together snugly enough, I can use my 3D pen and just weld all these edges together. I would want to make it work really well before I released this file to the public, though. So, let's do one thing really quickly. I'm going to extrude this back, minus 3.2, and I'm going to cap this instead. I think that'll add just a little tiny bit more strength. Yeah, let's do the finessing stage right now. A little bit of finessing. Minus 3. Join these together. Like so. This is printing flat here, so what else can we do? I could round this. No. I'm going to do a fillet. No, chamfer, sorry. Chamfers. Here. Here. all around here. Just clean things up a bit. Those last minute chamfers, they really just complete a design sometimes. Let's hit these corners too. Boom, boom, boom. This one I'm gonna keep since that's more of a functional part. I do want to trim away on these sides here. I mean, I could trim away at them and print it solid, or I could keep it as is and just have infill, you know? And it'll take the same amount of material. This might actually be better if I get the right amounts of surfaces and infills. Maybe I just leave it as is. Well, no, there's definitely some things that still need to be done. This back needs a cap. Yes. That needs to happen. So I need to cut away the dovetail here for a section of this model. As a sweep so that it follows this diagonal. We can take that, how far? I mean, the cap doesn't need to be, it's probably stronger if I just do a little bit here at the bottom. Let's make that 0.15. Yeah, these I'm gonna just split and mirror. So remove that. Split this body. Remove that. Come back here. Get right back into that same sketch. Whoa. What happened here? Something's wrong. Whoa. When did I mess up those fillets so badly? All right, hold up. Roll back. Messy, messy, messy. Let's just make it 0.4. Not beautiful here, but this is microscopic. Good night, Master Charles. Master King. All right. I think I fixed that. Now I can go back in here, select this sketch, and do that sweep. Use the same path. Make it 0.15 again. New body so that I only combine it with this side panel. Oh wait, no. All wrong. This part I'm making right now is supposed to be the cap for this yellow part. So I actually want to join this and this. Like that. And this really, is it gonna work with zero clearance here? It's not ideal. It's not ideal. Let's see if I can fudge it with a press and pull. When it's this time of night, I will fudge it. But I also want to go back and change this again now. Well, Can I also fudge this with a push and pull? No, not really. That's fine. That's fine. Huh. Think I'm pretty much there. And it's pretty much 3 hours into the stream. Yeah. I think we've got a workable concept here. For sure. Whoops. That was just... I'll have to go through this tomorrow morning when I'm fresh and make sure I didn't make any obvious silly mistakes. And I'll probably do little things, little OCD things like, oh, we've got this fine detailed overhang. It could print a little bit better with a 0.4 millimeter fillet like that on both sides. I mean, I do want to show this stuff to you too, because these are the little things that make the difference between a premium model and a piece of junk that you found on Thingiverse and dang it, just doesn't print quite as well as you want it to. But no, I think we're pretty much there. Or at least for prototype 1. I'm certain after I print this, there will be changes that I would like to make, and then I'll have to make the decision of whether it's worth making those changes. Which, if I were you and I was just making this for myself, for example, I probably would stick with this as is. I would use the 3D pen to weld things together and fix it however I need to. But obviously, when you're releasing models on the internet, the knowledge that whether it's 10 or 100 or 1,000 more people are going to print this at some point, you want it to be refined. You want it to be good. But I think this is pretty good. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what I did wrong. I guess if I do find myself making changes that I want to fix, I would probably just isolate that to something in my Discord chat. I don't think I'll make a full video about this. At the very least, I will have a short where I go out blueberry hunting in the next couple of days and share my harvest. It all depends on how well it works. If this works perfectly, yeah, I'll be like, hey, check it out. I printed this thing and I scooped up all these blueberries. If you want to see the whole process, watch this live stream. And if it fails, then that might make for a whole other video where I go through and try to fix everything. But I can't help but make some last minute changes. Still, we're so close, folks. For example, the bottom here, I always like to chamfer a surface like this that's going to be against the print surface. Just a 0.4 millimeter chamfer will make sure there's no sharp edges on the bottom of the print. Doing that on the top, bottom edges. It'll just give us a nice clean panel. That's worth doing. Yeah, I'll definitely share the printed model one way or another. Probably as a short, that's my thought right now. Maybe photos on Instagram. I know some of you avoid Instagram, but that's kind of my place to post inconsequential, like half projects and stuff. I mean, this is a full project. If this works and I get a bunch of blueberries, I will be proud. But I don't have specific plans for it. All right. It's looking good. It's looking good. A few more chamfers here and there. I don't know. Should I end the stream? I'm going to be doing this for the next few minutes, but I guess I'm not holding anyone hostage. If you want to dip, I won't feel bad. Thanks to everyone who joined. Oh, still got to double this up. Yeah, thanks for joining the live stream, guys. It's awesome. I have a lot of fun doing it, so I'm glad anyone wants to watch. I can't do it all the time because yeah, it does takes one night. It's quicker than it's less of a commitment than some other videos that I work on, but also let's be real, I'm not making money on this, but I don't know. If there's just a few people who appreciate it, then I'm happy. Let's say that. Honestly, these last steps of just doing all the little fillets and chamfers and refinements, it's kind of the most satisfying. It's my favorite part. It's like the ASMR of 3D modeling. I don't know what you would call it. Thanks for sticking around in the same time zone, Noah. All right, that'll get a 0.4 here. Oop. Why is it not letting me? Oh, revolve. Who clicked revolve? It is a new day. New day, a new model. Yeah, like edges like this. A little chamfer will just ensure that any slight inaccuracies in the printing won't stop things from sliding together. It's usually the edges that catch, so. Do I want to chamfer these? No. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of this. Just 2 out of 3 edges being chamfered. It's a little ugly, but I also want to... I mean, these curves are too tight for those chamfers. I guess I'll do the ones I can, and then I'll go back in and do a smaller chamfer for those other edges. That should do. Yeah. Little chamfers that the 3D printer will barely register, but I know in the future, printers are going to be like, zap, here's your model with 0.001 millimeter accuracy, and then I'll be glad I did all these little chamfers. Then it'll all be worth it. I mean, yeah. As far as being worth it, this model will be one of the more worth it models because I'm going to get fresh blueberries out of it. That's quite the reward for my work. Do I want to... So that's printing flat like this. Yeah. I'm trying to go through really quickly now, but I have to make sure I don't do any last minute mistakes. I got to keep the orientation of the print in mind. There we go. Oh yeah, like I was gonna chamfer this, I should chamfer it rather than a fillet. New day, same model. Such is life. But at least I'm finishing this in one go, you know. 3 hours for a new product ain't so bad, if I might say so. Let's see. Hello, Some Stuff Studios. You showed up right at the end of the stream. Sorry to say. But yeah, it could just as easily be a kitty litter scoop. That's very true. Although I don't know, maybe the hand would be getting a bit too close to the stuff. I'm very curious to see how springy these combs will be, if those will be strong enough. Everything else I'm fairly confident about. Let's give this a little tiny radius. That works. And for this top, actually, what I'm going to do, since I don't want to chamfer it and mess up the dovetails, is I'm just going to create a kind of pseudo chamfer. A cheater chamfer here. Oh, that's wrong. Should I do it? Let's see what that looks like. Just kind of cutting through it like that. Yeah, kind of works. And we still got this one. It's really like the tiniest stuff that you're never gonna see. Yeah, chamfers on the bottom surface are actually the ones that I find the most important, especially when I'm considering anyone who might be 3D printing these, not just myself. Sure, I might have the printer perfectly tuned in, but, or, you know, there's settings in the slicer for so-called elephant foot compensation. But that's kind of what I'm doing here. It's the same thing, but just in the model versus expecting people to do it in the slicer. And the idea is that the first layer or two of a 3D print is often squashed because you need it to stick to the build plate. And that means it's likely to flare out. So by having a chamfer here, you're kind of unflaring it. And so even if there is some elephant foot, it'll end up just being a normal edge versus like an edge that's sticking out. And so if you think about the comb here, for example, that'll ensure that you don't have some sharp edges around the bottom here. Some like 1-2 millimeter thick pointy edges that are just not what you planned the model to be. Yeah, it's definitely one of those practices I try to maintain. Okay. Yeah. There's probably more little stuff to do. Maybe I'll do them before I print this. Maybe I won't, but I think we're just about there. This does need to be mirrored because it's 2 unique parts. And then finally, we can align everything to plan for printing. So another great Fusion tool is just the shortcut S, which brings up this box, which you can then use to type in whatever tool you're looking for. So you don't have to memorize everything's location. You just hit S, and then you can hit A. Okay, A for align. Now I can select this surface, and then I can select my ground plane. Bada boom. And it's aligned and ready to bring into a slicer. I'll do the same here. Align. I do hate that there we go. You can flip it if you gotta flip it. Oh wait, don't want to flip that one. It is printing in this orientation, so we got a little bit of bridging there, but that'll work. That'll work. So I actually selected the wrong surface. Okay. I'm getting overly picky here by making sure everything's aligned to exactly the same plane. Really, as long as the orientation is right, almost every slicer will bring it in on the ground plane and drop the print down to that plane. But yeah, here we go. 1, 2. Again, being picky. This is already in the right orientation, but I'll just align it to the bottom plane. This also, whoops, pretty much ready to go. Just kidding. That was unnecessary. This handle's printing sideways, like so. This is printing flat. Oh, did I do it wrong? One part I did wrong. Yeah, I capped this off, but that would involve bridging, which most printers could do just fine, but it's just a little too far for my liking. What is that? 18 millimeters? Nah. So I'll align this, but I'm gonna undo that cap that I added there because it was pretty unnecessary. It's those last minute things. So let's undo this and hope it doesn't backfire and cause all these problems later down the line. I should be suppressing these before deleting them, but I'm living on the edge. Okay, there we go. So now the only change I have to do is chamfer this as well. Chamfer both of those. Yes, my pretty little chamfers. There we go. Oh, woohoo! We did it, folks. Oh man, it's freezing. It's freezing right now. Don't crash on me now. Be still, my heart. The chamfer is 0.4 millimeters, I think. That's pretty much my minimum chamfer I do as elephant foot compensation. I found it works well. Depending on the part, sometimes I'll do 0.6 just to be extra sure. But we do have a lot of little things here. Yeah, see, I already noticed now that I'm missing some. And I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Can't help myself here. I mean, this too. There's still a few. Okay, I'll probably go back before I print it and just double check this tomorrow, but it's just little things. I'm just a little obsessive with my chamfers, if I'm being honest. It's always that thought that, yeah, like 1,000 people might end up printing this. And for those 1,000 people, this chamfer might make the print more successful for 10 people. And sparing 10 failed prints is still doing a deed for the environment, is it not? Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, actually, after aligning, you can see even more print parts that might want to be chamfered. I find it also helps, like here, where there's going to be a bridge, having a chamfer means the bridging starts a little bit inside of the part versus right on the edge, and I find that can also lead to a cleaner part. Really tiny things that may or may not make a difference. But a few minutes of my time, hey, I'll take it. I'll take it. Oh, and that Sometimes the chamfers come to a point versus making the flat point. It's because I didn't do the chamfer at the same time as that chamfer. Oh man, the little frustrating things. Yeah, I'm calling it a night. Good call. It's for the best. Now, from there, right click, save as mesh, save them as separate parts, 3D print. That's all to happen in the future, but thanks for everyone, whether you stuck around for 10 minutes or for the full 3 hours. I appreciate you sticking around. This is something I had to make no matter what, because I want me a lot of blueberries. So to be able to make a live stream out of it and share the process with you was a lot of fun. I had a good time. All right. That's it. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you in the next one. And as always, stay inspired. See you guys.